It is February the 19th, 2021, and coming up on this episode, Formula One 2021 takes a step closer as the first teams pull the covers off their challenges for this season. It is a first look at how the sport will look this year. One team has made a massive announcement about its future in the sport. We'll look at Formula E, we'll look at Indycar, we'll look at NASCAR and some BTCC, but we'll do it all pretty swiftly as it is another disgusting day, chucking it down with rain. It is also the last Friday of the school half-term holidays, so there is much Lego to be made and much Mario Kart to be raced. We start then with Formula One, and we start with McLaren, who became the first team to pull the covers off their 2021 car when they launched the MCL 35M, so named because it now has a Mercedes engine in the back as opposed to the Renault that was there last year. Now, obviously, because of that, the car looks substantially different. It is incredibly tightly packaged at the rear of the car. The side pods disappeared to almost nothing, almost immediately. There's an awful lot of work that's gone on between the front wheels and what actually does exist of those side pods. A lot of people saying they don't think they can see much of a difference between last year's car and this, but I think it's going to be the way with all the cars this year. The devil is very much in the detail. McLaren went on the day after to be the first car to have a filming day, what we used to call a shakedown of the car, and indeed in the images which they released from that, they had darked out, blacked out and actually removed some of the intricate aerodynamic work around that barge board area and at the rear of the car. They're the two areas where you're going to want to have your focus absolutely trained with all these cars as they get released. One piece of news that did come out from the launch is Daniel Ricciardo admitted that he is on a 3-year contract at McLaren. And while McLaren were testing at Silverstone with the MCL 35M, the very next day, the Williams F1 team were on track at Silverstone testing the FW43B. I say testing, it's the shakedown. So just a few laps being put on to get it run through its initial paces. Of course, Williams don't launch until later on in March. AlphaTauri became the second team of 2021 to launch their car just this morning. The AT02 has very clear similarities with last year's car, but Franz Tost has set the team the gargantuan task of topping the midfield. And when you consider the midfield includes the likes of Aston Martin, Alpine, McLaren and Ferrari, that is a huge task. They finished 7th in the Constructors' Championship last year, despite a really great season. Can they finish any higher than 7th in 2021? Time will tell, but Franz Tost has set his stall out early. The AlphaTauri drivers, along with Max Verstappen, were seen going through some pretty disgusting-looking training regimens, actually, at Red Bull's Performance Centre in Austria during the week as well, along with what appeared to be a rogue Nico Hülkenberg. Red Bull waited until their sister team had unveiled their car to announce that they will be launching their car next week on Tuesday the 23rd. Looking forward to seeing the RB16B. After his road accident last week, Fernando Alonso has been released from hospital and allowed to return home, where he immediately got back started with his pre-season training. So good to see him looking fit and well and on the road to recovery. Alpine have announced that they will unveil their car on March the 2nd, the same day as world champions Mercedes, who let it slip during the week that their livery will pretty much look the same, although we expect the W12 to be a fair sight different to the W11. One other piece of note for Mercedes during the week is that they have fired up the W12. Now, Ferrari are playing the teasing game very well over the winter, each week dropping a little bit more information about when they will launch their car. Of course, the two-part launch officially sort of confirmed last week. Just today, an announcement that we will get that first part on the 26th of February at 2 p.m. Ferrari very happy to have finished second in F1's esports virtual GP championship. They won €15,000 in prize money, which they have donated to Save the Children. Aston Martin, meanwhile, have finally confirmed their launch date. It's going to be March the 3rd, and as we noted a few weeks ago, from Aston Martin's base in Gaydon. With Alfa Romeo due to be the next team to launch on February the 22nd, only Haas are yet to announce the launch date of their car, although I'm sure by the time you see this, they will in fact have announced that date. They may even have launched the car. Quite a big news week for Haas. Nikita Mazepin was in Banbury undergoing his seat fit. Gunther Steiner also in the press saying that Simone Resta, their new designer who they've pulled over from Ferrari, who's had his time at Alfa Romeo / Sauber over the years as well, would be 99% focused on the 2022 car from the end of February. In other news, Haas won the Formula One esports virtual GP championship, winning 20,000, which they donated to the Grand Prix Trust. And in other news, it was the Fittipaldi brothers who, of course, led Haas to that virtual Grand Prix championship win. And Pietro will return as the team's third driver in 2021. Great guy, but a racer at heart. He will be racing elsewhere in 2021, but you're just going to have to wait a little bit longer till we can tell you where. Now, probably the biggest news in Formula One this week came from Red Bull, and it wasn't in the announcement of their car launch. It was instead in the announcement that they had set up a new company, Red Bull Powertrains Limited. Now, this was something which we had foreseen happening for quite some time with the engine freeze coming in early. We knew that they would have the right to take over the Honda engine tech. But why this is important is that it officially recognizes that Red Bull is now an engine manufacturer. And so for the first time in its life as a Formula One team, its destiny from the perspective of how its cars are powered is entirely in its own hands. And that cannot be understated or overstated. It is a huge moment for Red Bull in Formula One. Onto the races for 2021, and Monaco has announced that it will begin building the infrastructure for its Grand Prix, its Formula E race and its historic race just this coming Monday, actually. February the 22nd is when they will start work on their track. Meanwhile, in Australia, it's been announced that the Albert Park circuit will feature some reprofiling and a slight change to the layout of the circuit. Obviously, it's very difficult to change the circuit substantially given that it is a street track. But that said, turns 9 and 10 will be reprofiled so that Lakeside Drive will have a much faster flow to it. And turn 13, which comes after that fast left-right kink at 11-12, that right-hander will now feature some cambering and has been reprofiled to try to allow more overtaking. I'm not convinced it's going to give that much more of an opportunity for overtaking at Albert Park, which never gives us all that much overtaking anyway, but good to see they are at least trying something, even if it's only slightly different. And in other Formula One news, Codemasters, who make the official Formula One game, have officially now been bought out and taken over by EA Sports. Despite some trepidation, though, from gamers about EA taking over Codemasters, EA have said that Codemasters will remain an independent group making its own games. Onto IndyCar now, and Romain Grosjean has touched down in the States and is at Dale Coyne having his seat fit and getting himself accustomed to his new ride in IndyCar, where he will have his first test next week. He, of course, is racing for Dale Coyne. I erroneously said last week that Charlie Kimball had signed to race for Dale Coyne as well. What I actually meant was he'd signed to race for AJ Foyt. Of course he has, for the Indy 500 and for the Indy GP. So my apologies for that. And while we're on the topic of IndyCar, can't let this week go without expressing a heartfelt message of good wishes, really, for Bob Jenkins, the legendary commentator who has covered so many IndyCar races and the voice of the Indy 500, who has been diagnosed with brain cancer. Sending you love and strength from this side of the pond. Now, Formula E gets underway this week with their first race in Saudi Arabia. Pretty much all the crews are already on their way out to Saudi. However, last-minute changes to the track layout has left minimal time for the drivers to get accustomed to those changes in the sim, and for the teams themselves to sort of figure out the additional maths they'll need. Will it catch anyone out? We'll find out soon enough. Having signed to be Lucas de Grassi's teammate at Audi in Formula E, René Rast has now confirmed that he will not be defending his crown in the DTM. We'd always known it was unlikely. However, the door was left open for him to come back on a part-time basis, do a couple of races, but he has decided that's not what he wants to do, so the reigning DTM champ will not defend his crown. The first races of the 2021 Asian Le Mans series took place last weekend in Dubai. LMP2 honours being taken by the number 26 G-Drive, LMP3 honours being taken by the number 23 United Autosports car. Final two races this weekend in Abu Dhabi. At the same time, Asian F3 carrying on at those same tracks, and after two wins and a third place, Pierre-Louis Chauvet, who has been so good and so consistent throughout this championship, leads Guan Yu Zhou by 32 points going into the final three races. Jehan Deruvala, who had looked to be very much in the mix, came off the rails a little bit with a 5th, a 12th and a DNF last time out in Dubai. Their final round, just like the Asian Le Mans series, takes place this weekend in Abu Dhabi. Talking F3, Juan Manuel Correa took his first laps back behind the wheel of a single-seater this week, taking out what appeared to be an old GP3 car. Absolutely wonderful. 533 days after that horrific crash at Spa-Francorchamps in Formula 2, back behind the wheel as he prepares for his season of F3 with ART. Meanwhile, Trident has signed Red Bull Junior Jack Doohan, son of two-wheel legend Mick Doohan. Jack had a tricky 2020 season, so we'll be hoping for better things in 2021 alongside his teammate David Schumacher, son of Ralph. In NASCAR, Michael McDowell recorded an astonishing Daytona 500 victory. In so doing, and here is a lesson in perseverance, recording his first Cup Series victory in 18 years and over 350 starts. An incredible result for a much-loved member of the NASCAR paddock. And in the BTCC, Stephen Jelley returns to West Surrey Racing in 2021 after an 11-year absence from the team. Well, folks, that just about wraps up what is, I know, a slightly truncated version of the show, but it is half-term holidays. As I said, there's games to be played, there's fun to be had, because school holidays don't come around all that often, so I'm sure you will excuse me for going and having a little bit of fun. Thank you, as always, for your support, for your comments, for your questions. I appreciate them all. I read them all. And join us next week, if you can, for the next edition of This Week.